Hello and welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about why you're potentially struggling to get funding as a business. So that means either bank funding, investments, grants, all those sorts of things kind of fall under the same sort of reasons. Investors kind of have a slightly different one, but I'll go into that. Into a bit more detail later. But the rest of them do also fit into kind of those reasonings as well. So anyway, I'm not going to give you a load of bumps. Let's just get straight into it. So the first one is that you need it too much. Banks don't like that. Now it sounds kind of counterintuitive. If you're going after funding, then generally you need it, right? Or you've got plans for it. But if it looks like your business is potentially really struggling, banks don't like it, investors don't like it. It's like, so if you think about it like a credit rating, right? So if your credit rating is too low, generally it means that you're using too much credit and that you're not very good with managing money. Whether you pay it back on time, it means that you're not, you're not very good with managing money. Going after funding with banks is the same sort of thing. So if they don't believe that you're going to be paying it back or you're going to be able to pay it back, you won't get that funding, basically. No matter how much you tell them that you will and that you definitely don't need it, blah, 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 right? They hear it all day, every day. So you almost need to be seen to not really need it. And if you are seen to need it, it needs to be a really good reason. You need to prove that the rest of your business is working well and that it's viable. Second one is that you don't need it enough. So again, counter opposite to the previous one. But if you put together a forecast and you make everything look absolutely beautiful, so for example, let's say you're going after 25 grand, right? And you're only ever going to be in a deficit of, let's say, 15 grand, right? They will generally then say that you only need 15 grand and they might come up with another solution. So maybe put an overdraft in or something like that if it's going to be cheaper for you, or they perceive it to be cheaper for you. If they don't think that you really actually need it and that you can do whatever you need to do on the cash reserves and what you've got in the bank or with cheaper options, they won't give you that funding, or they will very, very rarely give you that funding. So you almost have to get it to the point where you can show them that you absolutely definitely need that amount of funding, but then after that it looks all swings and roundabouts. But you won't get to the swings and roundabouts without that amount of funding, if that makes sense. So if you're creating a cash flow forecast and you want 25 grand, you need to prove that your bank is going to, you're going to be in a deficit of sort of 25 grand. And then after that, that money will then start to create an upward curve. And the only way that you're going to do that is with that funding. It's a fine line and it's hard to do, but it's definitely not, it's not doable. People do it every day. But at least if you go in knowing that, it will help you a lot during the process. Third one is that your business model sucks. So if you... A lot of people are kind of just coasting. They don't really think about what they want, what the business looks like, what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to do too much, all those sorts of things. So there's actually a video that I did previously about why your business isn't growing. This kind of feeds into that. If your business model sucks, or you haven't quite thought through what you're doing, and that's clear, neither banks nor investors nor other kind of outside funders will be interested in it. They need to see that they're going to make a return. This actually is more for kind of investment, but they need to see that they're going to make a return off the business model that you're planning. Now they can help you with that, but you need to be open to suggestion and change if that's going to work. And you almost need to have put in 95% of the work before you even go and speak to them. So market research, as I say, getting your finances in place, all those sorts of things are going to really help at that point. And if you don't do those things, you don't know who your competitors are, you don't know who your customers are, you don't know, what they like, what your strengths and weaknesses are, all those sorts of things, that's going to really impact you negatively down the road. And it will anyway for the business, whether you're looking for funding or not. So it's worth doing. 4 is you're dreaming. Now, sounds like a weird thing to say, but I see many pitch decks from people looking for funding, and investors just wanting kind of a second eye over things, all sorts of stuff. And there was one particular one that I always sort of drag up when I talk about anything like this. And basically it was a business that was doing like 50 grand a year turnover. And they wanted to get investment to make it a community interest business and employ certain types of people into their jobs and, create a whole community thing around the business. Anyway, basically he was doing 50 grand a year, and the pitch deck proposed that he was going to be doing £1 million by the end of the next year. And with virtually no cost. And when I said, how are you going to do that? It was like, oh, well, I'll just work hard. Okay, no, that doesn't ever work. You need to have a very clear picture, and this is part of what we do as a business. You need to have a very clear picture of what it looks like now, and then what it's going to look like, in 3-5 years' time, and then most importantly, how you're going to achieve that. Because if you walk into, you walk into a Dragon's Den style thing, or you approach investors, you approach banks, whatever, and they start asking questions about how you're going to achieve what you're expecting to achieve, and your numbers don't make any sense, and your pitch deck doesn't make any sense, there's not a chance in hell that you're going to get that money. So make sure that whatever you're proposing in that pitch deck makes sense, and you can back that up until death. Basically, you want to be able to argue that. You want to be able to argue that, and you want to make sure that you're persuasive with it, and you have very, very solid answers, because the people that are providing funding will see because the people that are providing the funding will see fuck's sake. The people that are providing the funding will see straight through that shit. Okay, I promise you. Don't try and bullshit it. Just get it right. Get it right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 5th one is that the lender doesn't like you. So if you ever, I don't know if anyone's watched The Moneymaker here. I love that program. Absolutely love it. But there was one episode. It was a guy who ran a restaurant. And hopefully he doesn't watch this, or if he does, I don't care, it's true. But there was a guy who it wasn't a restaurant, so it was like a bakery type, a high-end bakery. And he, from the eyes of the investor, had a great business because he wanted to originally invest in it. But as the show went on, the guy kind of decided that he knew everything, and he didn't want to change, and he didn't want to look after his staff. He didn't want to manage things properly in a way that would actually help his business down the line. And at the end of the show, the investor decided not to invest for those reasons. So, this is all too often. Yes, you might have been running your business for 20 years, whatever, right? But ultimately, there are people that know more than you. There are always, always, always people that know more than you. And certainly those types of people, in banks, lending, investment particularly, they see this stuff day in, day out, and they generally know what makes a business work. And if you're too cocky, seem to be too lazy, or just generally a bad business owner, you're going to really struggle to get that funding. So before you even think about going through a funding round, or getting funding of any type, it's always worth having a look at yourself and having a look at your business, and maybe speak to your staff, speak to your customers, suppliers, people that and find out actually what where you are, and is there anything that they think that you need to go through to make a change for the better for you and your business. And it might even be that after you've done that, you don't necessarily need funding. It might be that you actually have been holding the business back and you just needed to look within and make some changes before anything could move forward. Sixth one is you don't know your numbers. So how many times have we watched Dragon's Den and people go in and they say, yep, I want, £1 million and you can have 5.5% of my business. And the investor goes, okay, what's your turnover? And they go, 50 grand. What's your profit? Dunno. How much are you taking out the business? 50 grand. Right, okay, well, you haven't got business then, have you? Or the whole conversation goes, I don't know my numbers, I don't know anything, right? This is key. Again, I keep banging on about this, but if you don't know your numbers, you don't know where you are, you don't know what decisions to make, you don't know what you actually need, and no one else knows either. So if you're looking for investment, the investor isn't just going on a whim. They're not going, oh, I really like this guy. Yeah, I'm going to invest him in today, and I'm giving him whatever he wants because that's what he wants, okay? You are not God, okay? They're investing in a business model. They're not investing because they like you. They might be investing because they like you, but also you need to have the backup for that. And the entire business runs on numbers, okay? It runs on data. So, you can be making £1 million a year, but if your costs are £1 million a year, you don't have a business worth investing in. So you need to, you'll need to go through a process of making sure that you know your numbers, making sure they're right, because I can safely say now, haven't taken on a client ever that we haven't had to fix everything that the previous bookkeeper or accountant has done. There's a lot of shoddy work in the industry, and it's worth getting yourself a finance director type person in some sort of guise, whether that's employed, which you may not need to until you sort of hit, let's say, the 6-7 million turnover mark, or an outsourced kind of person, which is what we do. And it really, really can make a difference, because also as well, if you've got a financial head to go into that meeting with, the investor can then start talking to this guy, right? You haven't even got to know it. You should know the top level sort of turnover, direct costs, overheads, all that sort of stuff. But then when it gets down to the nitty gritty and the detail, you'll then have someone there that can talk everyone through it, and make you really understand it. Or they should be able to, at least, so that you're not going in unprepared, because it's the worst thing you can do. So if you're thinking about getting funding, please make sure you know your numbers. Also, just on top of that, if you're submitting cash flow forecasts to banks or indeed investors as well, and they start picking holes in it, again, this comes back to a previous point. You need to be able to defend that to the grave. So you really, 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 really do need to know your numbers, okay? And last but not least, number 7 is you haven't read the rules, or you don't know the rules. So let's take the recovery loans, for example. They were specifically for businesses in the UK that benefit the UK. So if you run your business in the UK, you're trading in the UK, all those sorts of things, then you may have been eligible, subject to other things. But if you were in the UK but trading in a different country, you weren't eligible. And this is where it's really important, so that you don't waste everyone's time, because there's nothing worse than and this is really important to make sure that you're not wasting everyone's time, including yours, because what you don't want to do is go through a whole process of putting together an application, sending it off, going through the questions, all those sorts of things, and then the lender goes, okay, well, where are you trading? I'm trading in Italy. Okay, well, you're not eligible then, are you? Look at how much time you've wasted, of everyone's time. And as a business owner, your time should be the most important time in that organisation. So if you're wasting it making applications or looking at applications for things that you're not eligible for, you're spending money, right? You could have been putting it somewhere else that was actually useful. And likewise with grants, again, make sure you know the rules before you start applying for them. Otherwise, you're just going to go down a rabbit hole and it's a nightmare for everyone involved, basically. So that's it. That's 7 reasons that you're struggling to get funding. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you're on the other social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those sorts of things, then please head over to the FD Diaries and there's more content on there.